Welcome back to our channel, Hume's Little Homestead. Today's video I'm really excited about because I have been wanting to show how each garden space is growing. Now there are some weeds, but the day is marching on and I just barely got to put Emmett down for his nap. So right now is the perfect time to show you the garden. So you're just gonna have to, don't judge me for all the weeds. I need to get out here and weed it, and I will, just probably after I shoot the video, because I really want to get the video done so that you can see how the things are looking. So this is a real video. I mean, all my videos are real, it's really happening, but I'm just showing. I'm a little embarrassed I don't have it weeded and manicured perfectly, but anyway, I'm excited with how the plants are looking, so I cannot wait to show you. I got my chart here. I didn't lose it this year. Last year I lost my chart. Guess what though? This year I found that I lost my chart. I chart out the garden space and I write it down in this little chart. And last year my chart was really cute and colorful and pretty and artistic, and this year I was like, I just need to get it written down, and it's just a bunch of lines and pencil, and there's some mud on it, you can see. Anyway, I lost my chart last year after I even made it, and then I found that chart from last year. Because I'm like, I don't know what I'm growing here. I don't know what I'm growing here. I knew what the butternut squash looks like and the spaghetti squash. We didn't really like the spaghetti squash, so I didn't plant that this year. Anyway, I found my chart. It was with all of my seeds, which that makes perfect sense. Of course you would put it with your seeds that you're saving for next year. So anyway, let me show you the garden. I'm gonna start with our big garden, and then I'll show the pepper bed, and then I will show the trees that we have started and that are growing and doing well. On our archway coming into the garden, I have honeysuckle on both sides. So that's 2 plants of honeysuckle. And in my head, I thought that it would just grow and bush up and fill out the whole thing, but it is growing slower than I anticipated. So it's looking much healthier now that we had all that rain. I do water it and fertilize it in the garden, but here's how the honeysuckle plant is looking. Next, I have volunteer marigolds. These are all volunteer and volunteer basil, and I decided to let them grow. They're on the very edge of the garden, and I thought they were pretty, and I decided to just go ahead and let them grow. Now these are sunflowers. I have a sunflower at the end of every row, and I believe this is the evening sun sunflower. This tomato plant here is Matt's wild cherry. It's not taking off like I thought it would. I think it might be getting too wet here at the end of the garden, because the water does pool up here at the end and at the edge. But here's Matt's wild cherry. Last year, my Matt's wild cherry did the best, so it's surprising that this one's not doing as well. Then zinnia. Now this tomato here is Cherokee Purple. I don't see any, oh, there's one tomato started on it. Here's Cherokee Purple. Now I really wanted to show each individual plant, so if this starts to get boring, I'm sorry. But I really wanted to show how each individual plant was doing, and to document and keep record for myself, as well as share with anyone who lives in my area what plants are doing well this year, and I'd be interested to know what plants are doing well for you. The next tomato plant here is a pink brandywine, and it's the tallest in this row. So you can see Matt's wild cherry down there, not getting very tall. And it could have to do with the nutrients in the soil. Maybe there's poor nutrients over there. I did amend it a little bit, but not as much as last year. And then there's the Cherokee Purple, and right here is the pink brandywine. And you can see it has the nice big leaves that Brandywine tomatoes do, and I do see some tomatoes. I'm not sure if that is the Brandywine or if that is the next door neighbor. I think that's the Brandywine, because that's the Brandywine tomatoes. I think there's another tomato growing right next to it though. Can't see. So there's the Brandywine stem. Oh yes, there is another tomato growing here. Okay, yeah, that's not Brandywine. That's growing on the neighbor. Here's the first of the Brandywines. Kind of small still. Oh, there's another one in there. And when they start producing their color, when they start getting color and blushing, it'll be easier to tell which tomato is which, because the pink Brandywine is going to look very different than its next door neighbor, which is VR Moscow, which it has a ton of fruit on it. There's a little blossom end rot going on there, but that's expected with all that heavy rainfall that we got. I'm curious. Looks like these tomatoes don't have that right here, so that's good. Anyway, if you get heavy rainfall like that, it causes the tomatoes to grow so quickly, the fruit, that's what causes the blossom end to rot. It's really hard to prevent if you get a heavy rainstorm. So, VR Moscow was next. And then I have 3 eggplants. I also planted an onion amongst the eggplants. So I've got an onion growing here and some more volunteer marigolds. And oh, it's putting on some more fruit. So I have 3 eggplants here. They put on these really pretty purple flowers. I did not know that. Anyway, I thought they were very interesting. And oh, look, there's another eggplant peeking through right there. They have a beautiful color. These are Black Beauty eggplants, and I got these seeds from the seed guy. And I got these seeds a long time ago, and I didn't know if they would even grow. At the end, I've got Green Dream parsley, 4 o'clock, a volunteer marigold, and this cute little dandelion I let grow. I want to look at these other eggplants on this other side. They look so neat as they're growing. I love how they look. Really, really neat, and super surprised that they're producing fruit. All right, row number 2. We start off the row with large red cherry. These ones did really well for me last year as well, and it is the tallest tomato in the garden so far. And it is starting to get up to the top of our cattle panels. And we have been able to pick off red cherries. I don't see any today, but there is a whole lot of fruit on them. So very exciting. At the bottom of this plant, I have a marigold. And next to it, we have a sweetie, another red cherry tomato plant. And you can see the size they get, about a quarter, little quarter size, dime size to quarter size. So that's the sweetie red cherry tomato. And next to that tomato, I have a Roma tomato plant. I've been wondering what this one is. It is the most prolific so far. Roma is a determinate plant, so it will put on as much fruit as it will, and then you'll be able to harvest it pretty much at the same time. And that's all that the plant will produce. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's how it works. At the bottom of these plants, I have growing in their shade, and I love to plant herbs at the bottom of tomato plants because it deters pests. Pests will smell this parsley and be like, well, that's not a tomato plant, I don't want that. And it won't move on to your next plant. And it has worked well for me in the past, so I'm continuing that method of gardening, planting marigolds and herbs at the bottom of my tomato plants. This is Italian parsley. And then I have basil here. I do not have written down what kind of basil this is. I believe it's just the regular sweet basil. I think it's one of the seeds I saved because it's got some purple on it. And it probably isn't growing true to type. I had some Thai basil and some cinnamon basil. There's cinnamon basil right there, and it looks like it is growing true to type with how purple it is. This next tomato plant is a Wisconsin 55. It's supposed to put on really, really big tomatoes. So far, so good. And I'm feeling there's no blossom end rot. That's really exciting. Then a marigold, and then I've got a tomatillo, and the tomatillo fruit is so neat. It looks like little lanterns. So very pretty, and it's putting on a lot of fruit. This one was attacked by pests, but it is doing well now and doing okay, and it's still producing a lot of fruit. Next to that, I have another cherry. This is another large red cherry. I told myself I was only going to plant one in the garden this year. I have more than one. And at the bottom of this plant, I have acorn squash. And I love these for making soup bowls. They're very fun to make soup bowls with. Then I had a volunteer bean. So I had Kentucky Wonder beans last year, so this must be Kentucky Wonder. And it looks so pretty, I couldn't pull it out. And then another evening sun sunflower. It has yet to open up, but it's going to be beautiful when it does open up. Row 3, I have a very short sunflower here, and then butternut squash. Here is how the flowers look for butternut squash, and here is how the fruit looks as it's growing before it matures. So it will turn a nice tan color when it's time to harvest it. At the bottom of this plant, I have green dream parsley. And then I have another sweet basil plant. And then another tomato plant. This one I believe is yellow pear. Just looking at those tomatoes, let me check my chart. Yep, this is yellow pear tomatoes. And they make this cute little shape. These aren't my favorite, but they are my kids' very favorite. So I planted this plant for them. I didn't like the flavor as much as I like the bright red cherries flavor better. Bright red tomatoes flavor better. And I have this pink zinnia. I didn't know zinnias get that tall, but it has gotten really tall and beautiful and keeps putting on a lot of flowers. At the bottom of that, I have a nasturtium plant, and I'm so happy that it's doing much better. In the past, I have not done well with nasturtium, but this year it's doing well, putting on flowers, having really pretty light green foliage, and it's just a beautiful plant. I'm glad that it grew well this year in my garden. The next tomato plant is a brandywine. This is a yellow brandywine. So this is like my yellow row. I've got yellow pear, yellow brandywine, and you can tell brandywine tomatoes because they have these massive leaves that are so beautiful. I don't see any fruit on it yet, but I do see a lot of blossoms, and it is a beautiful big plant. And last year this happened, it was the last, my brandywines were the last to put on fruit. So I expect the same this year, that they'll put on fruit after everybody else. And I like the brandywine tomatoes for slicing tomatoes for sandwiches and that type of thing. Next down here I have, next to the yellow brandywine, I have spicy saber basil. Oh look, there's a bumblebee, a honeybee actually. Look how pretty it is. And this plant is also called holy basil, and its leaves are more fancy looking than regular basil. So here's a regular basil plant, and here is the spicy saber or holy basil, and you can see that the leaves look a little different, but it's both basil plants. Spicy saber basil is more medicinal than culinary. Our last tomato plant here is a Martian Giant. This is my first year growing the Martian Giant, and I am comparing it to some of these others to see if I like it. I see that it has a lot of fruit on it and some big fruit, so I'm excited for the slicing tomatoes on this plant. It has similar leaves to the brandywines. Then I've got a marigold under that plant and another 4 o'clock. and another volunteer marigold. All of the marigolds were volunteer. I did move some of them and put them in places that I wanted them, but I also left some, like that one grew right there and I just left it there because I like flowers at the end of the row. I'm excited to see what these 4 o'clocks look like when they open up. Row 4, we start off with more 4 o'clocks and another marigold, again a volunteer, and my English cucumber. We love English cucumbers from the store, so we decided we wanted to try them this year, and it's doing well. From what I've read is that they're supposed to be grown in a greenhouse, but they seem to be doing well out of a greenhouse. So there's one of its fruits. And I also have onions planted along here. These were just onions from Safeway that I experimented and put them in the ground to see if they would grow, just from the produce section, and they grew and they did fine. Next is cinnamon basil, and this was seed that I saved, so I wasn't sure if it would grow true to type because I didn't do anything to block the pollinators, but it looks beautiful. It looks like it got a little mixed with some of the green basil that I had growing last year. But it's a beautiful plant. It started out as a cinnamon basil, but I think I didn't save the seeds correctly, so it's definitely mixed with other stuff. But that purple is just a beautiful dark color. Next, I have Aroma tomato plant. This one's much larger than that one over there, and it's doing well. So I'm excited to see that. Then I have another Italian parsley, another volunteer marigold, and some more basil. And the tomato at the end of this row is called VR Moscow. And this one got attacked by a tomato hornworm, but it is making a comeback. And I do see some little tomatoes on there. And then at the end, I have scallop squash from Baker Creek. And this is where I had 2 squash planted too close together. So I pulled out one yesterday, and this one should grow a lot bigger now that it's not competing. And I decided to leave this one because it had more fruit started on it than the other one. That was the deciding factor for who got to get pulled out. And then an evening sunflower at the end of this row. And this one is going to be beautiful, I think. Row 5, another evening sunflower. This one has really beautiful big leaves. It's got bigger leaves than the others, but it's not as tall as the others. Then a marigold, and I've got a Martian giant tomato plant. It is looking quite tiny and not giant, probably because of that sunflower getting it a little too much shade. And then I planted a onion down there. Then some Italian parsley, zinnia, and I have African daisies down here tucked under. These are also called gazania flowers. That's what it said on the pack. And then I have got some basil next to that. The next tomato plant I have over here is San Marzano, and it's doing really well. Or I don't know, you might say that San Marzano. I think it's San Marzano. I don't know. I don't pronounce things great. It is putting on fruit, and it is quite tall. And a marigold under that. And then I've got another tomatillo plant over here. It was also attacked, but it looks like it's recovering, and we've been diligent to pluck off the bugs. And then I have my section that I accidentally way overcrowded, but it's doing all right. So in my overcrowding mess, I have a San Marzano tomato, which is doing super well. It's so overcrowded, but it's like the best part of the garden. So starting it off is a San Marzano tomato plant, a scallop squash that's just doing fabulous, and a zinnia is in here. There's also a basil plant underneath here, but it's all thriving, and it just looks like a jungle. And I don't know if there's just better nutrients on this spot, but it's doing well. And then the last tomato plant is a Chadwick cherry that is doing really well above that squash plant. And then we've got a sunflower plant. This was volunteer, so I don't know which kind this is. I did plant teddy bear sunflower here last year, so it might be teddy bear. And underneath that is a marigold and a 4 o'clock. So this is an overly crowded jungle section, but I think it's beautiful and I don't know why it's doing so well, but it's doing well. Row 6, we start off with a volunteer marigold and another 4 o'clock. It's a lot smaller. And my favorite tomato plant from last year was the black crim, and that is what we have right here. And it is putting on some tomatoes. And then mammoth basil. This basil, I absolutely love the flavor of this basil, and I've just really liked it this year, so I'll definitely be growing that. Then I've got a cilantro plant that I'm letting go to seed to collect for its coriander. And next to that, another tomato plant. This one is Amish paste. Now I'm doing a competition between my Amish paste and my Romas and the San Marzanos. Those three are the same type of tomatoes, and I want to see which ones do the best. This one's doing really well so far. Underneath it, I have basil, and then I have this very sad little tomato plant. This is a black cherry tomato plant, and it's not its fault it's so tiny. It just didn't get a very good start. Plus, I planted it in a bad spot between 2 other tomatoes. And the tomato next to that is green zebra. These are fun. I like to grow one plant now. I grew a bunch last year, but I'll grow one now. But this is about the color they get, and it's just a really fun tomato to have. Then I've got, oh, I don't have it written down. Next, I have a black cherry tomato, crookneck squash, and an unknown tomato. This always happens to me every year. I'm like, I'm gonna make sure I write down every single plant, and I don't have this one written down. So it's a mystery tomato. We'll see what it produces. And I don't know, that's another crookneck. I think I should just pull it out. It's so much smaller. And then this section this section just must not be as fertilized because the plants aren't as big or prolific. So that's another evening sun. But look at it compared to its neighbor over there. Wah, wah, wah. You can see this side of the garden just isn't as big. I don't think it's as nutrient dense. I'm gonna remedy that next season. But down here is golden wax beans. So green beans, but they're golden. Volunteer marigolds. Volunteer sunflowers. And carrots. Our carrots actually did very well. So whatever nutrient was down there for the carrots, they did well. Cilantro actually did very well too, and it is time for me to harvest that coriander seed. I did plant okra over here. It is not doing well. There's one of them. I have 2 types, burgundy and Clemson spineless. I also have asparagus down these 2 rows. I have Jersey Night, Mary Washington, and purple asparagus. Over there was the garlic and the onions, and I've harvested those now. I have a good plan for garlic that I can't wait to share with you guys. And then I had 3 extra flowers for the flower garden. Those are gladiolas. I tucked them right there. And the last thing I'll show you in this garden, oh, I guess there's one more thing to show you after this, but my blackberry bush. I'm thrilled it's growing. Don't know if it was a good idea to put it directly in my garden, but I have not had any luck with any of my berry bushes, and blackberries are my absolute favorite, so I'm trying it here. The rest of this, obviously grass is not something I wanted growing, but there's some basil that's volunteered itself and a lot of marigolds that just popped up, and I think they're cute, so I let them stay. This next section has the most weeds, and I am not happy about that, but I'm gonna show it anyway. This is the end section of the garden where it gets runoff, and I didn't know exactly what to do with all the herbs that I had planted. So I decided to tuck a bunch of herbs here. So I've got basil, parsley, volunteer sunflower, basil, parsley, basil, and a weed. Oh, there's another bee. Bees love basil. Let me tell you. Parsley, basil, parsley, volunteer sunflower, parsley. This one's the mammoth basil. Sorry, I haven't been giving exact. And then I've got oregano here, and it's doing quite well. It's a very small plant, and I think at the end of the season, if I think I'm gonna dig it up. I'm gonna have to read on that, but this is my oregano. And my very favorite thing in the garden this year is the chamomile. Look how beautiful chamomile is. It's like peaceful and calming just to look at. And we've made chamomile tea a couple of times, and it's just been really awesome. So this is definitely my... So that's the main vegetable garden this year for our little homestead. Things I wish I would have done differently is I wish I had more space for watermelons and cantaloupe and pumpkin. We did plant some in a ditch, but it never did well. And I didn't think that it would because I haven't had luck in that ditch. There's just not very good ground right there. I've tried to grow things there in the past and it just didn't work out. So next year my plan for that is instead of so many tomatoes, I'm going to plant other things like the cantaloupes and the watermelons in that main vegetable garden area. And that's why this year my tomatoes are in a competition. I'm having them compete against each other to see which ones I like the best, which is why this chart is vital, and me keeping like records of, okay, which one got blight, which one got more pest damage, which one did the best in my area. So that's what I'm doing with all of these tomato plants this year. And I always plant too many cherry tomato plants. I'm like, I'm only gonna plant one plant. And as you can see, I had at least 5 different varieties of just cherry tomatoes. I personally love cherry tomatoes, but one plant produces enough for one family. So I don't know why I go crazy with the cherry tomatoes. I just always do. So next year I'll try and rein that in as well. Maybe I'll just make a whole section of just like a whole different piece of my yard for just cherry tomato plants. That would probably be a better idea. All right, now let's go look at the pepper bed. This is the bed that really needs to be weeded as well. It has a bunch of grass growing in it, and I didn't get out and get it before this video. I wish I had, but I mean, it is what it is. You can see and the peppers aren't doing well. They're yellowish. They're putting on peppers, but they're not doing as well as they did last year. So, and last year was my first year to even get peppers on my plants. So I don't know. I am just not good at growing peppers. I keep trying. I'll keep trying year after year, but I think I needed more nitrogen in the soil or something. You will see what I'm talking about. And let's go in there. And I think they're a little flooded, so there's going to be a million mosquitoes. So if I'm talking really fast, that's why, to get through that section, because I still want to show that section, but there's so many mosquitoes. So I came out at the hottest part of the day because there's less mosquitoes out right now, but I know in that section there's going to be a ton because there is standing water, which, ugh. Okay, I'm going to go out. Go do this. Let's go do this. Okay, marigolds, evolution violet, purple alyssum, white alyssum, evolution violet, white alyssum, onion, and my favorite flower, I think. It's quickly becoming my favorite. These African daisies are just gorgeous. They're called gazania flowers on the packet, and they just have the most beautiful, bright, happy blooms, and I'm so happy I planted them. I wish I would have put them in our flower garden. But look how beautiful all these little flowers are. They're gorgeous. I just love them. Then I've got white alyssum, evolution violet, white alyssum, evolution violet down here. And this plant is doing really well at the bottom. And mammoth sunflowers all along the edge. And over here is rhubarb and sunchokes. Sunchokes are very invasive, but I love them. I think they are beautiful, and I'm happy to have them. The way I have my peppers set up, the hottest start down here to the sweet non-hot over there. So These three here are Santaka. Then I've got Thai Hot. Then I have Cayenne Pepper. And then this row here is Serrano. And then I've got jalapeno, tomatillo, and an eggplant that randomly got put out here by accident. And then I've got jalapeno, pasilla bajo, jalapeno, pasilla bajo, ancho peppers, peppercini peppers are all in this section here. And then I've got a habanero plant right here. And then the rest are sweet carnival bell peppers. And that's the peppers this year. Like I said, they're not doing great, but that's what I've got planted. And yeah, the flowers look gorgeous. The weeds are terrible. And the peppers are sad. Here are some of the onions I harvested. These are the last set that I harvested. They're massive. I love how big that one got. And over here I have a random array of tomatoes next to the quail. So I've got yellow pear, I believe that's green zebra, tomatillo, and black cherry here on the end. As many of you know, the beginning of this year we were super excited to welcome another baby into our family. We were due in October, but we experienced our very first ever miscarriage at the beginning of this year. So, well, we found out we were pregnant at the beginning of the year, and we had the miscarriage on March 28th. We decided to name our baby. We named our baby Skylar Lee, and we planted a flower garden to remember this baby. This was our first time going through that because we've had 5 full-term pregnancies, and we have 5 kids right now, and it was very different. And this year has been interesting. As each month rolls along, I think, oh, I would be showing by now, I would be getting bigger by now, and I would be feeling the baby kick by now. And it's just really definitely strange. There's not many words to describe it. Unless you've had a miscarriage, it's kind of hard to comprehend the emotions that come along with it. I've been so grateful to friends who have just sort of like taken me under their wings, who have gone through the same thing, and I'm just so grateful for the network of people that have surrounded us in love. Anyway, this flower garden that I'm going to show you now is our flower garden to remember Skylar. So I'm excited to show it to you. It is totally full of weeds, just like the peppers, but it is doing well and looks pretty. So it is also in between 2 apple trees that we had previously planted. So it's a pretty nice little area to have a little flower garden. So let me show you the flowers that are growing in there and how it's doing. A lot of the flowers are spent and have produced their flower that they're gonna produce. But we have, these are gladiolas, and this is Canamix. So let me show you some of the gladiolas that are in bloom right now that look beautiful. I love these yellow and red ones. I think they look gorgeous. And I cannot wait to see how these look, and if they're gonna bloom this year, I don't know. They're very neat. I've got lilies. I made a rock that says Skylar Lee. And my mom gave me this cute little sign that says planting a seed is believing in tomorrow. These lilies are about to open up. Look at this plant right here. It is beautiful. I love this one. Like, it's so massive. Like, just big. Big plant. And here's some more that are opening up right now that look beautiful. And then I have 8 more lilies down here. They're not doing the best, so I'm gonna have to figure out what kind of fertilizer to give them. And I've got a tree that grew in that bucket. I grew this asparagus from seed, and this is a calla lily I got from Walmart. It was infested with aphids, so I put it way out in the field. Ladybugs came and ate the aphids, and it died and I thought it was dead, but it started to come back after I moved the pot over here and started watering it. I also planted some vegetables in this section. I've got green beans and butternut squash that I wanted to shade the rabbits. This actually doesn't look like butternut. This looks like acorn. So I've got acorn squash and butternut squash. I also have zucchini over here, but it did not get enough water and it's very sad. So the green beans are trying to make some shade for my rabbits. The last thing I want to show you on this video is all the fruit trees we have planted on our property. We had planted some from seed as an experiment, so I don't know if those will ever produce any fruit, but the ones I'm going to show you first are from like 4-H club and actual stores that will probably produce fruit. So, all right, let's show you the fruit trees. Here is our first apple trees that we planted. I don't know what kind it is. It was a gift from my mother-in-law. But I have 2 apple trees from her that the 4-H club in St. John's did. And hopefully they'll produce fruit one of these days. If not, that's okay. They're still beautiful trees. Growing in my front yard, I have another tree from my mother-in-law. It's a peach tree. I believe it was Georgia peach tree or Alberta peach tree. I can't remember. I will have to look on that. But that came from a store as well, so that one should get peaches someday, and it looks pretty healthy. These next trees are trees that we planted from seed as an experiment. I have no idea if they'll ever produce fruit, but it was a fun experiment. This is a pear tree, peach tree, peach, peach tree, peach, peach, peach tree, peach tree, and peach tree. Doing really well. And I also planted a cherry tree. I don't know if it survived the flood. It does not look like it did. This used to be a cherry tree. It didn't survive the flood. This video would not be complete without a quick tour of what I have growing inside what I call my plant room, which is also we call it our, what's that room in Harry Potter? My brain just went blank. The room of requirement. We call this our room of requirement because it kind of catches stuff like the kids' rollerblades and all that kind of stuff that you need a place to put that stuff. Anyway, I'm going to show you the plants that I have growing. One of my big goals this year was to plant a lot of herbs and learn about herbs, how they can help our bodies and how that we can use them as medicine instead of always turning to the Tylenol and the Motrin and the Pepto-Bismol. Instead of always turning to those things, I'd like to use herbs, and I did turn to them last night. My daughter had an upset stomach, and I was able to make her homemade tea with chamomile, lemon balm, peppermint, and sage, and all of those things are supposed to help aid in the digestive tract and settle down your stomach and also calm you down. So she was able to calm down and go to sleep. Really cool that I was able to just come in here, snip a few herbs, and use them. And I want to do more of a potted garden with this type of idea so that I can have my herbs year round. So I'm hoping to just have them in pots all over my house. Someday I'm gonna have a greenhouse and then it won't always take up a room in the house. But right now, here's my plant room, and this is the last thing that I wanted to show on this video of what we have growing this year, 2021. It is July and we are kind of halfway through our gardening season. We haven't really started to harvest a lot yet, but we are starting to see the green tomatoes and we're starting to get some harvest of our squash, and it should just continue throughout the season. So here are the plants I have growing in my plant room. I turned off the fans and the grow lights. I have 2 oscillating fans that go at all times in here to help with airflow. And each one of my little sections of plants has a grow light. And I just think that grow lights help the plants grow so well. So to start off, I have a lot of snapdragons planted that I'm planning on planting outside in the fall. I've got English lavender that I started from seed. Oh, all of these things I started from seed. So you'll see some of them are at different stages of growth. Rosemary. Chamomile back there. Lemon balm. This is one of the things I put in my daughter's tea to help her stomach settle. And more snapdragons right here. These are snapdragons, and I am planning on planting them out in the fall. I learned that they like cooler weather, and then I just have some houseplants here. Not sure what they are. They're just houseplants. Here's our herb garden that I planted. I have a tutorial on how to make this exact herb garden. My cilantro wasn't doing well in here, so I reseeded, and it's come up really well, so we'll see how that reseeding goes. So I put cilantro in this indoor herb garden, chamomile, lemon balm, and sage. I think what I would rather do, I wanted a variety in this box, but I think I would rather just have 1 herb per container. I think if this was like all sage or all lemon balm, I think that if I let the lemon balm be by itself, it would spread all over, and I think that would look really pretty. So I may end up separating these out. In fact, I probably will, after this chamomile gets harvested, end up separating these out. I mean, I called that cilantro. So cilantro, I'm finding, I thought you could grow it all the time and just snip it down, but it does bolt. Even after I've snipped it down once, it starts to bolt anyway. So maybe cilantro is something you just have to continue to sow. Over here on this table, I have thyme, and you saw that if you saw my roast chicken video. We used this in the roast chicken and the roast chicken brine. St. John's wort. This is a really pretty plant. It's just sort of flowing out. Calendula. This pot needs water. Peppermint. Columbine. This plant wasn't doing well at all, and it's sort of taking its time, but it's starting to get bigger and bigger. These are Levi's orange seeds that he planted. So it's an orange plant. Those little clementine oranges, he decided to plant 2 seeds, and he got 2 little trees growing. So that's what those are. Sweet marjoram. This is flowering, and it looks really pretty.
No, Emmett, don't turn the fan on.
Echinacea. Feverfew white stars. This is supposed to help with fevers and headaches. More peppermint. Feverfew white stars. Yarrow. Marshmallow. Foxglove. And a habanero plant. Over here, I have more foxglove, marshmallow, feverfew, and then I have some hummingbird vines or trumpet vine, 3 of them that I plan to plant outside next year. Feverfew, chamomile, yarrow, snapdragons, St. John's wort, feverfew, another rosemary, and lavender, which I'm so happy I got at least 1 lavender plant per cell, per seed cell, and some more keep popping up. They just take a really long time to grow from seed. I'm trying to be patient, trying to keep them having the appropriate amount of water. I usually have water in the bottom of this tray. I haven't done it yet today. And I keep them under the grow light. The last thing in this room is my willow tree. It had roots, so I planted it in dirt. So we won't know until it starts. I'm sure it's still working on getting its roots strong and healthy, and then it'll start putting on growth on the top. But this probably won't be planted outside until next year as well. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of my gardens today and all of the plants that I'm growing. And I hope that you're enjoying this channel. And if you have already liked and subscribed to our videos, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support. If you have not liked and subscribed, we would invite you to, and we would appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for following along with us as we build our little homestead. Bye, have a great day.